Welcome to the Real Estate Rundown. We all know that the real estate market is driven by three things: location, condition, and price. This quote from Glenda Baker, though, sums up what we're seeing in our market and across the U.S., and I think is so important. I want to talk about it. She said, I don't know if it's an Amazon Prime experience that buyers are looking for or if it's an HGTV expectation of condition. But now more than ever, I have to tell you, we're really seeing this expectation of condition, where it is bringing my toothbrush, bring my suitcase, and just move right on in. I've never, ever seen anything like condition being the driver more than anything. I am seeing that it doesn't even matter how much you offset the price. If the condition is not perfect, crispy, shiny new penny, people are just taking a pass, and I've never seen that before.
That's interesting. Well, I think with the cost of capital the way it is, they want shiny new penny for the new high payment.
Well, I think people just have a high credit card debt. They don't have any money to remodel the house, right?
Absolutely, they're hilted,
or they're at the top of the market. You know, hey, I can't afford anything else, so got to find something already move-in ready.
Or they're expending most of their budget. They're at a 7% interest rate. Their payment is really high, and they want something nice.
Yeah, no room on the credit card to improve the property.
Yeah. Well, when I heard this, I mean, we see this. We're seeing this all throughout the U.S. in many, many markets. And we have a couple products in our Zoodealio platform that we bring to homeowners through their agent that allow the seller to flip their own home, renovate that home so they can bring a beautiful, shiny new penny to the market.
And that just feels good, right? It feels good to like sell a house that's, you know, that you lived in, that is like nice for the next person.
Well,
right?
It's way easier.
Like,
all of us have sold more than just a couple of houses. And when you walk into a house that's fresh, smells good, they took care of it, and they're going to move out, and it's easy to shows well, easy to sell. You're like, cha-ching, awesome. Yep, I can do this. You walk into that house, doesn't smell so good, has a bunch of stuff. They don't clean regularly. You're like, crap. Right? Real talk.
I was talking about like as a seller, I like selling something that's nice to people, and knowing that, hey, I left something behind that was better.
You can be
I left
proud
it
of.
better. Yeah.
Yeah, left it better than I found it.
Yeah.
That's one of my house rules, by the way, with my kids. Leave it better than you found it.
Do they?
Is that working out
Yeah.
for you right now?
Depends on how much of an enforcer I want to be on the week.
Oh, yeah.
That's funny. That's how I am with my dogs. They just don't tend to listen to me very well.
Oh.
Yeah. Neither do ours.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely seeing that as a trend. However, though, there's always two sides of the coin. I am pretty blown away on a consistent level that on the Cash Plus program, when those are purchased, and sometimes properties aren't worth rehabbing versus price and the upside that you could get from it. So in some scenarios, it doesn't make sense, and it just makes sense to put it back on the market as is, and let's see what the market brings. And what some of those are selling for I'm like, okay, well, if I was a betting man, I thought it would have gone for less. So you do still have your buyers out there, but yes, in general, the ones that aren't at least move-in ready, doesn't have to be high-end remodel, just at least move-in ready. They sit for longer and they go for quite a bit less, and it's just not a fun experience for anybody involved in the transaction.
Well, without a doubt, it's going to be based on supply and demand of the local market, right? Buyers are always going to base their decision on the available inventory.
I mean, there's one in Florida that's a prime example. It's the big dog in the neighborhood. You know, it's easily close to about $200,000 plus worth of renovations because it's such a huge house. And you could even went more extravagant on it, but you have to do what you can within your budget. And people are still saying, well, it's not high end enough. And even with price reductions, that email couldn't be more true for this particular property. People, even with a price reduction, is still not overcoming their objection. They would rather it be more remodeled and pay more money then get it at a cheaper price.
Well,
So
Glinda said it really good, right? I think it's HGTV or Selling Sunset, right? Like, I think people have really bought into that dream. Or
Well, it could be. Redfin announced that the typical down payment for a buyer is $56,000, up 24% from a year ago. So it could.
That is a lot.
I think that's what's driving it. I think it's just so expensive to buy a home right now, and people that are buying, they don't want to, as Jason mentioned, they don't want to pour more money into it once they buy it.
or they just straight up can't, which I think is probably majority of the time the case.
Yeah, it's definitely, we definitely have an affordability challenge in the housing market.
Yeah, another
champagne taste with the beer budget.
Well, and another thing I found
But it's
funny,
not even a beer budget, though.
Yeah.
Sorry.
in that post is that roughly 33% or 1/3 of all transactions are cash right now, and that's like approaching some of the historical highs. So are those the people that are, actually trying to get a deal?
The rich are getting richer, Elliot, and the ones that are buying cash, they're buying the assets up, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Where the first-time
Hedge
homebuyers
against
aren't able to-
inflation.
Yeah, now the first-time home buyer has to pay for their own agent.
Yeah, so that's the other thing too. Redfin also came out with another article about first-time home buyers and how they need to make $76,000 to afford the typical U.S. starter home, and how that's up 8% from last year. And one of the things that is interesting is in the, let's call it July. Let's say the NAR settlement is approved, it goes through, and sellers can no longer offer commission. Now they can offer concessions, I got it. But let's just say that, over time, the amount of compensation for an agent is diminished and buyers have to pay their own buyer's agent commission. It's going to make that $76,000 that they need to make to afford a starter home go up.
All that much more.
Yeah, or like we were talking about before, we're going to see a lot more amount of deals fall apart if they don't have representation, which is also going to be sad and suck at the same time too.
Yeah. So what is it now? I think nationally, 15% of all escrows fall through. And so
I'd love to see that in a couple
Yeah.
years.
Let's watch that stat.
does it go up to 25?
Maybe even in 6 months.
So what do you guys see with the buyer broker agreement that's going to be going to happen? Because they're going to have disclosed compensation with that buyer beforehand. They cannot adjust the commission up. So for example, if they have a buyer broker at 2%, the concessions that are being offered are 5%, and potentially 3% could be allocated to the buyer in that situation. They could not, adjust their compensation up because it's already a pre-disclosed compensation at 2%. So do we think that we're going to see the contrary where, hey, Jay, sign this buyer broker with me at 3%, but in the event that we can't get the the seller buyer concessions to cover it, I'll adjust them down?
I mean, if I'm a buyer, I would like to see that in writing because
right, you would.
You're gonna get the close and your agent's gonna be like, nah. I'll take a credit card though. I mean, will there be a service for agents to accept credit cards?
But
that might be a good business.
Would that throw off the DTIs? Would it be like a buyer going and buying new furniture?
Funding condition?
Well, hey,
yes.
we can charge a credit card after closing.
Oh, I love these tactics, but
Dear.
Jason's like,
Yeah, it might be a good business right there.
Yeah.
I think I just ran into a new business.
That's
Stripe.
interesting.
All right.
Yeah. Payment processing for real estate agents. Hey, so, back to the buyer broker, though. And it'll be interesting to see if there are additional stipulations put on it, right? Because I think what you just outlined is the way it's going to be in the event that that's allowed, unless they come out and say they can't. But here's the reality, though. Have you ever tried to enforce a buyer broker?
no, never.
Yeah, who's ever tried to enforce a buyer broker
And
take someone to court for it?
Exactly, because before, at least here in our market, if you have an issue with compensation, you would go to your board, and the board would, if there was a buyer broker, then you could even send your buyer broker to the closing company, and the closing company would pay you. But it's not going to be like that anymore. So is it gonna be the broker that bears the responsibility of enforcing all these? And like, let me tell you, broker profit margins are razor thin. They're not gonna be anning up an attorney for you to go enforce a buyer broker contract. Like, I can tell you that right now.
They'd be like, sorry guys.
Yeah, not unless you want to split it 50-50 if we win.
Or yeah, exactly, right?
But if you don't win, then you just have attorney's fees. So
yep.
So is our brokers?
Well, there's a lot of the IC agreements out there. I know I've seen some in the past where the independent contractor agreement with the broker and the agent, in an event that there's litigation, that they have to put in like a $5,000 retainer or whatever it is for that to retain that legal counsel.
Yeah, absolutely. So
do you think brokers will have to sue the homeowner?
I think so.
Yeah, that's the way
agent?
it is now. I don't see why that would change because it's underneath the broker, not the agent.
So it's
I mean, that would be a nightmare. I'd be like, no, I'm not going to get in a bunch of litigation for an agent.
Yeah, because it's not your lost time. As crappy as that sounds, it's not.
Like what? Yeah, our margins are raised with them. We don't make much money. I mean, sometimes, an agent pays $250 transaction fee. Does that make sense to go to court for them and try to win their commission for them?
No, and that's my point. I don't think that I don't think the overwhelming majority of brokers are going to be able to enforce those.
No, they're not.
Do we think we're going to see some type of retainer? Right, because now you're gonna have to have that
take a retainer
and deposit in the brokerage account. I know you can.
Yeah.
So, but that's what I'm saying. So is it going to be, hey, I'll show you properties, but you're going to write me a $1,500 check before doing that?
Yeah, because what is it? I mean, okay, so with this new law, this is interesting. so I'm a buyer. I sign a buyer broker with Kayla. She finds me a house. We get down to closing, and I don't have enough money to close or to pay your commission. So what does the title company do? I say, well, I don't want to pay Kayla anymore. Close the deal. What happens?
What happens?
What happens?
Great question.
There's no one in there to sit there and say, no, you can't close the deal. No, the title company will probably close it.
Well, not only that, part of fiduciary is your commission's not supposed to ever stop a transaction.
Exactly. But I have a buyer broker, and
I know.
Settle outside of escrow.
Settle outside of escrow, and guess what's going to happen? Broker's going to go, I'm not.
Yeah, the broker's going to get
sorry,
screwed.
you're out of luck,
I'm
man.
not going to court for you.
Absolutely. In
Stuff
that situation,
happens. Move on.
they're going to get screwed.
Yeah.
That's what I would see.
I mean, I see a lot of buyers doing that. I mean, once they, there's a lot.
But I'll refer my brother to you.
All these Reddits and stuff like that, and all these things. People try to get around things, and
I'll use you when I sell it.
There are buyers that are. What do we say? Buyers are liars, or a lot of
buyers are liars.
Sadly,
not all of them.
Sadly, that's a common phrase.
If this ends up being as hardcore as we think it's going to be, and there are more rules and regs put in place, so you can't be crafty and get it through concessions or have all these agreements that are going to protect you as an agent. We just have to shift our focus in the marketplace and start going after more listings and maybe offer, hey, I'll just, if your broker allows it, of course, maybe we'll start seeing a lot more dual agents or less people being represented, but have some type of process in place that say, even though I'm not representing you, I can still walk you through the process and give you fair and honest dealings to provide you the paperwork necessary, but I'm just not going to represent you. I've done that several times in my career.
Absolutely.
And it feels like you are, but you're not.
Which everything what you just outlined is great until something goes wrong. Because now,
anything can can go wrong in any circumstance.
I think listing agents are potentially going to be put in some really precarious situations because you're going to advise in some way, shape, or form, and then now you're going to be potentially in a bad situation. Not meaning to is what I'm getting at, right? Well, they're going to ask you a question and you're going to answer it, and it's going to come across as advisement.
I mean, I think that you're not supposed to let commission get in the way. But if you have an agreement with that buyer, what happens?
Yeah, it's going to definitely be a little bit of the wild, wild west, which, hey, we're used to that in Arizona, so bring it on. But about dual agency, Redfin has recently made a change to their policy. Previously, they would not allow dual agency, and they wouldn't allow dual agency in their realtor partner programs either. And after all of this settlement news broke, yeah, they've already They've already changed their policy, so now they're allowing dual agency.
Yep.
I can see the the gray lines with dual agency. But here's the thing: at the end of the day, instead of it just being a pure fiduciary to one party, it's just gonna be like, hey, I'm gonna be the middleman and the facilitator. I'm gonna make sure all the paperwork is tight and correct. You're gonna understand what you're getting into. You're gonna understand what you're getting into. But I'm not going to favor one party. I don't see why it's that big a deal. Me personally, and there's other people who might hear me say that and totally disagree. I've done dual agency so many times in my career, and I know deep down in my gut and my heart that neither party was steered the wrong way, and it went just fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, done well, it can be a wonderful outcome, right? And I think it's just going to come down to the seller and whether the seller wants to allow it or not, right?
Sure, absolutely.
You know?
So,
and like Elliot said, we're going to have to be really careful about our dealings with the other party when they're unrepresented. And, sadly, not all agents are up to speed on agency laws. And so I think that, probably a good refresher for most of us is to really dive deep back into agency and understand your fiduciary obligations.
Well, and for the agents that are already, trying to scrap their way to make it, doing, less than a handful of deals a year, is this gonna throw more difficulty on them because now they got to sharpen their saw on the sales, tactics, implementation around these new strategies. Now they got to go back and practice up on agency and all these other things. It's just, eventually the pancake gets too thin and it disappears versus there being two sides.
Mm-hmm. Eventually you have a crepe. So, and here's the reality. Like, some people are saying, like, oh, this settlement's a nothing burger. Not much is going to change. Some people are taking that approach. Like, it's really not going to be that different,
they
right?
are that picture with the ostrich with their head in the sand. That's what that's what I think about when I hear that.
Yeah.
I guess it's too soon to tell, in my opinion, because if we can just use the compensation field as a commission field, then what really is going to change? Not much. You're just going to have to treat your buyers like you do your sellers and have a buyer presentation with everybody.
Buyers are going to negotiate the crap out of
how
things.
many times does a buyer get to the closing table and they go, oh shit, I don't have enough money to come to close this deal. I didn't realize I had to pay the prepaid taxes or this, that, and the other,
or all these lender fees.
And then they're gonna look at the agent. Hey, Kayla, sorry, I need this house.
Yeah.
Yeah. Will you reduce your commission?
You know, reduce your commission?
I think that's
We
why
can't. Oh, you're not gonna reduce your commission? Well, I need to close this anyways. It's the seller wants to close. I want to close.
That's why I think.
Sorry.
I think the
I think
argument
you're right.
the argument can be made that the mortgage professional will be leading these conversations in the future, and probably more buyers going to them versus an agent to start it. And that mortgage professional is probably going to be partnering that buyer with an agent and having some sort of like, hey, this agent will represent you for X. And I don't know. I could see that happening. And let's talk about Better, guys. Let's talk about Better for a minute, because did you see what Better's doing?
What is Better doing? They're doing something better?
They have taken that approach throughout
They hired a bunch of people online now versus fired them.
Well,
or in a Zoom.
it does have to do with hiring.
Oh,
They
okay.
are now hiring real estate agents
Oh, okay.
as W-2 employees to go get their loan officer license. Better is doing this. Like, we saw a lot of people doing this locally, but now Better is doing it, which is crazy.
That is really crazy.
And did they have a brokerage?
Yes, but Better has had a brokerage. Remember they had real estate agents
Oh, yeah, yeah.
before,
Yeah, I remember.
and they it's like, okay, we're going to take out the agent. Okay, no, now we're going to fire our entire staff, and now we're going to hire the real estate agent.
Hire them, teach them how to do loans, and then have them do both sides.
And then that way they can refer it and make money. You know, what Fly Homes has a little slice like that. Orchard has a little slice like that. And then, of course, we've seen so many of these, I would say more traditional mortgage companies start to, step into that world. Obviously, one of the ones that led the way here for a long time on that's no longer in existence was AmeriFirst. And then, of course, Nexa.
Wait,
another one.
What's going on with Nexus? So that one kind of spread like wildfire. It was
did.
kind of like, wasn't it like an EXP type model for mortgage
Exactly.
professionals?
Yep.
And then they started hiring.
Correct. Real estate agents.
Real estate
and
agents.
if you're right, because they came up with a monetization schedule where essentially you could be a real estate agent and monetize off of basically referring your deals to your partner LOs inside your little network.
I heard Nexa doesn't pay their employees W-2.
And Arizona is very clear that if you're working as a mortgage professional, that you need to be W-2'd.
Yeah,
right.
But
Minimum wage.
But there's no one policing that, so that's how they get away with it.
They're pretty large for that. I'm surprised they wouldn't have, or did they get busted?
No, not that I'm aware of. No.
No one's turned them in yet.
But there was some news about
Jay just
Nexa. I know you want to share
Come on,
it.
tell us what the Nexa news.
What happened, Elliot?
Well,
Nexa
when we
news.
were doing a little bit of, just preparation for the podcast, looking at things going on, one of the things that I had discovered is that Nexa, Mike Cordes, one of the founders and CEO, he's been terminated for essentially by a member in this article, I believe, who's potentially a part of the board, obviously advisory and some for using company funds to purchase airplanes, an airplane hangar, parts, etc. So I don't know if he was trading the airplanes or what, but I mean, it obviously said that there was a $24 million lease of an airplane hangar, which I saw on, I'm friends with him on Facebook, etc.
$24 million.
$24 million used company funds. I saw him throw some huge gala around the holidays this year
for an airplane
Parties?
hangar or an airplane.
It must have. It was a lease. Here, let me look it up.
How you can't? I mean, that'd be expensive to.
That's what I was
have a
thinking.
lease for,
Where is
Yeah.
this?
Like,
Okay,
the
so it
biggest airplane
says
hangar
when
alive.
Cordes entered into the letter of intent for Nexa's purchase. A letter of intent for Nexa's purchase of a $24 million airplane hangar leasehold. So maybe he was going to buy an airplane hangar. So
and then lease it out to
right.
other airplanes.
Correct.
To park your airplane.
Wow.
And then he was going to be able to. Use those airplanes.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he was going to try to run some type of business model, but even though on the airplane, I do remember them saying, he had the Nexa badge on his, private plane. He refurbished this airplane, whatnot. I mean, I don't know enough other than just this article and what I've seen on Facebook.
Imagine getting all the way to the PJ and then having the PJ taken away. I don't know. I don't
bummer.
know. That sucks. Let's have a moment of silence for Mike Cordes.
No, let's not.
No, but for real though,
I'm curious what's going on. I mean, because you still
gotta hurt.
Nexa and curious times.
So he was kicked out, but he had a board that had more power than him. Huh?
Yeah, I was about to say. I was like, well, if he was the owner, can't you spend your funds on what you want?
Well, if there was some type of board that had been put in place, I mean, clearly there was talking about contracts like we were talking about before, or an operating agreement. There was some type of operating agreement that he violated, and that they found egregious enough to remove him from his position.
They were looking. They
Yeah,
were waiting.
Yeah, well, Mike is a curious personality. I mean, that guy in his position,
He's a Sam Bankman-Fried.
I wouldn't say that,
No.
but
I mean, he's using company funds to
Talking about SBF.
misappropriated funds.
What'd he get? 20 years?
25
25.
in a minimum security prison.
What is that even?
I didn't know that he was autistic. Did you know he was autistic?
I didn't.
I was like, I'm like, really? I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
I saw some special on that where where I believe,
Yeah, his parents are both law professors at Stanford, and he's autistic. I read it in the article when I was reading about the 25 years. And that's part of the reason why they gave him, a minimum security prison. Well, obviously he's not
Played
violent,
that up.
but, yeah.
Yeah, he's not violent. And he could have gotten away with it.
Yeah,
I think that's what fascinates me the most.
If the cryptocurrency didn't
Yeah.
die. If it was today's cryptocurrency,
Yeah, he would have gotten away with
yeah,
it.
he
smoked
got
it.
away with it. Yeah.
None the wiser we would have been.
Yep.
Interesting, right?
Yep. Definitely interesting. You can see how many others are out there that have gotten away with it because of.
Yeah, it's like the
The-
move the cheese, kind of
Look,
play.
I mean,
and-
look how long Bernie Madoff got away with it.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Decades, right? Like decades of scamming people.
Yeah,
It's insane.
that is one of the obviously that's the craziest story probably of all time.
Well,
That I can think of.
Yeah, it's a sad story too. Like, didn't his son end up sadly ending his life? And
Yeah, committed suicide.
Yeah, it's terrible. Oh my goodness. Play by the rules, people. You can still get really far if you play by the rules.
yeah.
Yep.
don't-
I'm proof.
Still Still scratching and clawing too.
No, you wouldn't let me buy that airplane hangar.
Dang it.
Zoodealio funds.
company funds.
Yeah. Dang it.
These guys would have been down. They would have been.
Hey,
Let's buy it.
you know, becoming a pilot is part of my life goals.
Yeah. How are you tracking?
How are you even fit
against
into
that?
a plane? Like you're too tall for that. Like
Elliot's
you
really
gotta fit in
tall.
the
Small
cockpit.
one, yeah.
I fit. Yeah, no, I fit. It can be very cramped.
Yeah.
So, because
Eating your knees.
it's just like a couple hundred hours, right?
Yeah, it's nothing like super crazy. I've taken like several lessons, but I mean, I have a couple of friends that are pilots, and they all advise me like, hey, unless you're willing to like buckle down and knock this out in like 6 months, don't do it until you have a time frame that you can do that. Just because he said it'll get really stretched out because you have a certain amount of hours, a certain amount of testing, and all those things are like, hey, when you can dive into it and focus on it for like 6 months, do it then.
Have you ever seen John Travolta's house he has jets, and like he literally has the walkways on his house, so his jets like go up to his house, and he can get out and go and walks right into his house.
That is awesome.
That is really cool.
No, I haven't. I am absolutely going to go Google image that.
Maybe Colby will throw it in here.
There's
it's
a new
pretty trippy.
There's a new listing in Gilbert that has a flight simulator. It's only $20 million.
Only.
Who's buying $20 million?
Is that the one that had all kinds of? It was like almost like an amusement park.
Yeah, it has like a go-kart.
Yeah, that's
track
crazy.
and-
I saw that.
Yeah, I did. I know, right? And I'm like, who's buying
Like,
that?
it came out in like what 2-3 weeks
In
ago.
Gilbert.
Yeah.
Like that.
High prices have just gotten obnoxious. I remember not that long ago when I was, every day selling real estate that there was like a $15 million property or mansion in Paradise Valley. And I was like, 15 million, right? And I mean, we're talking now PV. I mean, that thing now would probably be 40 million.
Yeah, but people buy it's very expensive houses in PV. But we're talking about Gilbert and Queen. There's actually another one on the market that just came on the market. It's like 30,000 square feet in Queen Creek, and like there's houses like the houses around it are like 600,000 to $1 million, and it's like
How much
did
is
you do
it?
that for? Yeah.
it's $20 million.
Well, they way overbuilt
Yeah,
it.
so like, and it's like way out of. It's like who's buying this thing over here? Like, there's gonna be some multimillionaire just wanting to move to Queen Creek, Arizona. And
somebody who's going to
$20
buy $20 million. You want, maybe not everybody needs to be a
you can
$20
see
million
it out
neighbor,
in
but
PV and stuff, but it's definitely out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
And you just don't know. Like, does someone know something? Is there like something happening around here? That
Fair enough.
Like, I'm going to build a 20, and it's a brand new house. So they're building it right now, and it's like it has like a full size basketball court. And
Is it like a
indoor
Temple Bishop?
pool. I don't know, man, but it's wild. It's like why wouldn't you build that in PV, not in Queen Creek? You'd probably sell it a lot faster.
Agreed.
Agreed. Mm-hmm. But
Agreed.
that one buyer though,
The one buyer, I guess so.
my guess is just someone built it for themselves and then had a change of plans,
Yeah.
Could be.
and it'll
But,
end up.
I mean, that's an expensive change of plans.
Yeah, but
unless they really only have like 8 or 9 million in it and something like that, and they'll probably just price come down to where someone will say, oh yeah, I'll buy this in Queen Creek. Who knows?
maybe.
Not that Queen Creek's bad. I mean, there's some $4 or
Actually,
$5 million
Queen Creek
houses.
we have the highest income
high-
per capita.
We do.
Yeah.
So like Jason acts like it's like
Yeah, like it's
a
AJ.
dump
It's
out
not
there.
AJ.
No.
No, but
Queen
but,
Creek-
I, but,
Queen
it's
Creek is
gorgeous
bomb.
too.
but
Yeah.
the most expensive houses we've seen in Queen Creek is
Like 5-7 million.
5, 6, 7 million.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then all of a sudden 20. It's like whoa.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's quite a big jump.
Yeah.
Quite a big jump. All right. We got any like deal of the week? Anything like that?
I mean, there's always deals. Most of the time I kind of talk about what we talked about earlier about improving the property and going off of that email. What was her name? Glenda
Glenda Baker.
Yeah, that's right. So I'll talk about something a little different because I think sometimes there is a misnomer around the Cash Plus specifically that it only works for properties that need work and all that. And yes, it's a great product for properties that need work. That's really where it extra shines. But it also works for properties that don't need a dime. And we've been seeing that a lot lately, where we're getting a really nice property, a newer property that's only within, with 5 years old or less, doesn't really need anything. Maybe it could use some new paint, but the seller is like, no, my paint's just fine. And they don't want to do anything. It's like, okay, cool. I think it's probably good enough, but that new paint always helps. And so, I mean, really what it just boils down to is meeting the needs of what your sellers need in order for it to make sense to streamline that process and getting to the next move. So I'm just throwing that out there because hopefully a lot of you who are listening are members. And if you're not, you definitely need to check out the Cash Plus because you're missing out big time. If you're not, you don't have that in a part of, talking with home sellers, is it just comes down to, making sure that you give them an option that makes sense regardless of the condition of the property. It works for everybody. Mm-hmm. So that's my deal of the week.
I love it. I saw one in Prosper, Texas. Where I don't think
that's nice. It's
yeah.
like
that house is pretty
$700 and some $1,000
sweet
property in Texas. Beautiful high-end kitchen, flooring, everything, and you would what a $760,000 house should look like. And they needed those funds. They didn't want to list the house.
Yeah, it's a beautiful home. It extra surprises me when I look at them and I'm like, whoa, it's a really cool house.
It's a pretty home.
Yeah.
I'd live there.
Yeah. And Texas always fascinates me. They have beautiful homes.
Yes, they do. Well, I got a little bit of advice that I will throw out there real quick. I think it's really important in our turbulent times to kind of go back to some of the basics. One of the ones statement I love, I heard years ago that I really try to stick to is create content that solves problems. Now, a lot of times I think when people hear that, they're thinking about always posting social media, or how can I create a TikTok, et cetera, on those things. And although those are massively viable options and they can absolutely scale, I think you should do that 100%. However, you also want to potentially look at what is your marketing campaigns, what is your email campaigns, et cetera, that's going to be able to ultimately talk about some of these options like Keith was talking about. These are problem or solutions to problems that certain homeowners are having. So for example, if you have an option to be able to sell their house and allow them to lease it back on a monthly basis, that's going to potentially start a conversation for you. If you can have an avenue that's going to maximize their cash offer value and 100% ensure that they're going to get full market value that's on a timeline that makes sense for them, you're going to solve a problem in the marketplace. So I just want to prompt everybody to be thinking about these things. How can I create content that solves problems? And the beauty of these, marketing frames, once you have them created, is they can infinitely scale. So
I love it.
Very cool.
Very cool.
All I have is buy Bitcoin today. It's low. It's down. So buy some Bitcoin.
What's it at right now, Jay?
I don't know, like 65,000.
Yeah, I saw it was below 65.
Came down a little bit.
Normal process happened before the last rise.
Well, it makes you wonder how many times is it going to dip back under 65? So you got to take advantage of these opportunities when they happen.
Now we have the halving coming soon.
16
days.
And
we could see a dip again right after the halving, and then I think after that it'll skyrocket. It's either going to skyrocket right away or we're going to see one last dip.
Yep.
I don't know. We'll find out.
Hope we get one more dip so we can buy some more.
We about to find out.
All right, I'm gonna end us with viral vibes. So, Realtor.com came out with filters to where you could filter your new home search by the proximity of your ex.
What?
Oh, snap.
Also,
is that legal?
Also came out with new filters that showed you who's looking at what you paid for your house.
How do you know who your ex is? Wait, who's looking at
find your ex? Do you have to register your ex or something?
Oh, no.
All right, so it was part of an April Fool's joke. Realtor.com posted these on social media. They were hilarious.
That is funny.
It got me. It got me. Good one, Realtor.com.
That would be bad for them because then you wouldn't want to look up people's houses.
Yeah, if you knew you were
like, see who's,
they're gonna
see who's stalking
They're gonna
you.
see I looked at their house.
It's kind of like on LinkedIn though. If you have the premium, you should be able to pay for it, right?
Zillow Premium.
It would be an upcharge.
See who's looking at your
Yeah,
house.
see who's stalking your house. Interesting. All good things. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. If you're getting value from this content, be sure to take a moment and give us a like, subscribe, and don't forget to hit that notification bell so you're updated of our new episodes.